What happens when you combine VR with sim racing? You get the most immersive gaming experience in the world, but choosing the right components to build this VR racing setup is crucial. So I'm gonna walk you through every bit of mine and give you tips to build your own no matter your budget. Timestamps and links to everything are down in the description, and last but not least, I'd like to thank this video sponsor Antlion, the makers of the Mod Mic wireless. So more on that later. Kicking off with the skeleton, if you will, the cockpit itself. The one I'm using is the Track Racer TR80. It's an aluminum profile rig that is not only extremely sturdy but very modular and adaptable. Now, adaptability is important, not only because you can adjust this to fit your height and preferences, but also because you can continue to add to it as your hobby grows. But what if you don't have the space or budget for one of these? Well, I started off by just clamping a wheel to my desk, so here are a few tips to get the best out of it if that's your only option. First, make sure your desk is sturdy, because a force feedback wheel is pretty powerful and you want it to be stable. Secondly, if you're going to be sitting on a chair with wheels, get these cheap wheel stoppers from Amazon because you don't want to be sliding around every time you push your pedals. If you do go with a dedicated sim racing cockpit, then one element which is really important is the seat. Trust me, your butt and lower back will thank you for not buying the cheapest one. But what if you can get one that's cheap and extremely high quality? Because that's what I've done by going to the junkyard and buying an actual car seat. Mine is from an Audi S3, and that means it still has all of the adjustments that a regular car seat has, making it super versatile and comfy. Now on to the heart of this whole setup, the wheel. In my previous 1.0 VR sim racing setup video, stupid old me said this: "To me, unless you're doing competitive sim racing or somehow earning a living from this, spending this much is complete overkill." Well, I'm older and wiser now, and while I don't completely take back that statement, after using a direct drive wheel for more than a year now, it's an absolute game changer. I'm using the Logitech G Pro wheel, and without getting too technical, it's an 11 Nm wheelbase, which simply means it's really damn powerful and can simulate realistic forces for anything from a Ford Focus to a Formula 1 car. Which is also why I use racing gloves, because I really need the increased grip. The G Pro also features a technology called True Force, which is basically a very detailed vibration motor inside the wheelbase that really makes the entire thing come to life. You can feel bumps in the road, tire slippage, engine rumble, and a lot more. And because it's bolted to this aluminum profile rig, the whole thing vibrates and makes the sensations extremely realistic, especially when using it in VR, but we'll get to that in a second. Logitech have also recently released more wheel rims, a shifter and handbrake, and a wheel hub that you can use to attach any rim to, including real car wheels. And this is the only thing I've decided to purchase, and attached one of my old round wheels, which is perfect for rally and drifting, where the original D-shaped one that came with my Logitech base is not ideal. Now, all that being said, the Thrustmaster T300 RS wheel that I was using before is still a fantastic choice if you're on a budget. There's one more component before I talk about my recommended VR headsets, and that's the pedals. I'm using the Logitech G Pro pedals. They come with all three pedals, but you can take out the clutch and space the brake and gas further apart for better comfort. That's exactly what I've done, since I rarely drive manual cars these days, and for GT and Formula cars this is way more realistic and also comfortable. The brake pedal is actually a load cell one, which means it determines braking force in-game based on the actual force you press with, exactly like in a real car. Okay, let's talk VR headsets, cause this is a VR channel at the end of the day. I started off my journey with a Quest 2 and it absolutely blew my mind. From there, moving on to the Quest 3 was another huge jump in clarity and comfort. Both the Quest 3 and the new Quest 3S are fantastic sim racing headsets. But there is one headset that takes the cake when it comes to clarity and immersion. The Pimax Crystal Light is currently the most realistic and gorgeous looking VR headset for sim racing. And yeah, I know you might have heard not so great things about Pimax in the past, but they've listened, and I've gotta tell you, they knocked it out of the park with the Crystal Light. It's super high resolution, nice big FOV, and the clarity that these lenses offer is just off the charts. I swear I'm instantly transported into whichever car I'm driving. It's just that realistic. The only downside is its size, but it's about the same weight as a Quest 3 with a third-party strap, so comfort is not bad. That being said, I still find myself using virtual desktop on my Quest 3 to race, just because as a full package it's simply the best overall. I'll leave a link to my full review of the Crystal Light below if you want to check it out. Now, one thing I have on all my VR headsets is this tiny nub, and it's the magnetic attachment from today's sponsor, Antlion. You get multiple of these with any of their microphones, and it's super easy to attach to VR headsets or headphones. Then you can just snap your Mod Mic wireless to any of them for crystal clear mic quality. I've had this one for over 40 years and it's still my favorite microphone for this purpose. It has a solid build and works on any device by using this USB dongle, and you can quickly and easily mute yourself by just tapping this button. And it even mirrors the mute status to the dongle so you can see when you're muted. By the way, this whole whole section was recorded with the Mod Mic wireless, so you can hear how damn good it sounds with absolutely zero post-processing. So thanks Antlion for sponsoring this segment. Now back to the sim rig. With great power comes great responsibility, and that means a beefy PC to run all of this. I'm using a build from Stormforce with an RTX 4090, 32 gigs of RAM, and an AMD Ryzen 7950X 3D processor, all coupled with 4 TB of super fast NVMe SSD storage. I absolutely love this thing. But don't get discouraged just yet, because I started off my journey with a PC that I built myself that has a 5800X processor and an RTX 3070, which you can probably build nowadays for about $1,200 max, and it runs VR beautifully. Of course, on the new one, I can max everything out and have full resolution and high frame rate on the Crystal Light, but it does work just fine with a bit of a lower resolution and in-game settings on my old PC as well. Because I'm also a huge rally and drifting fan, I had to also get a Handbrake, and I'm using the one from AOLogs, but honestly, any $50 one from Amazon will also do great, and I've left a few options in the description below. And if you remember the old setup, I was using this H-pattern shifter, but I just don't have the space for it anymore, so I've replaced it with this Moza SGP sequential shifter. Having a dedicated shifter and not having to rely on the paddles from the wheel makes it much easier to nail shifting, since you know exactly where it is at all times. The paddles rotate with the wheel, so that sometimes makes it difficult to use them. Plus, I mostly use a shifter in rally and drifting, where I use the larger wheel I showed you earlier that doesn't even have paddles or buttons. And to make it easier to navigate menus or search for cars and tracks, I've also added a swiveling keyboard tray, as well as a mouse tray up here. If you're curious, I'm using the Razer Black Widow V3 Mini as the keyboard and an old Logitech MX Master 2S as the mouse. But you could obviously use anything you have lying around for that. I just had these, and they're both wireless and have super long battery life. On my left here, I also have a cheap fan from Amazon, because it can get quite hot while racing, as well as my Elgato Stream Deck to make it easier to start or stop recordings, change scenes when streaming, stuff like that. And talking about streaming, my setup also features 3 Elgato lights, 2 key lights and 1 key light air up here. I've added a light and camera arm here on a hinge so that I can move it in and attach my camera to, because there's just no space for a tripod here. This is why I love aluminum profile. It's just so versatile for custom stuff like this. To complete the look of my setup here, I'm using 4 of the IKEA pegboards, which allow me to decorate this wall with some of my old wheels, a few models of my favorite cars, and anything else I might think of adding. Surrounding this is a Govee light strip that just adds a little something special and obviously makes me way faster on track. Now, if you're on a budget and want to get into VR sim racing, the best thing you can do is watch this video next, because it walks you through everything you need to get going. I'll see you soon. Cheers, guys.